It's a yes bank maximum, the first of this contest. Oh, that is brilliant. It's a hero maximum. On the ground, down the ground, another hero maximum.
Righto, welcome back to the Maximum Cricket Podcast. My name is Munter and we are here with Lugsy and Jacko. This is episode 29 and our last covering an incredible T20 World Cup. This, of course, was brought to a close by the now universal white ball champions beating a fiery Pakistan team by 5 wickets. This World Cup coverage has been brought to you by our good friends at PYRANHA Grip Socks. Bring flair to your game. And I tell you what, there's been a bit of flair going on in this final, but let's start with maybe the clutchest cricketer I can remember, Ben Stokes. Now, since the 2016 T20 World Cup final, where ironically he was the opposite of clutch, he was man of the match in the World Cup final in 2019. We have, of course, the Headliner knock, and now we have yesterday's performance, 52 not out in a World Cup final. In T20 internationals, Ben Stokes averages 19 with only 150. And that 50 was last night. Now, boys, explain to me how a guy who before this final had never passed 50, yet in the moment on that stage, there was no one else I would want in the middle than Ben Stokes.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to he's a guy, isn't he? Like, he's a guy that's done it before. He did it in the World Cup final against us. He's done it at Headingley. He's done it here. He can do it with the ball. Like, there's guys that are just made for it, and he's one of them. And yeah, I mean, he's a titan when it comes to those sort of positions in cricket. And yeah, as soon as England were batting second, you just sort of felt like maybe they're going to chase just as easy, but Pakistan's attack's good. But yeah, with Stokes there, it felt like they were going to do anything, and they did.
Yeah, it's funny. It's just one of those things. Like, it's pretty cliche to say, but like, he just doesn't look scared of the moment at all. And really looks like he wants to be there for the winning runs, wants those big moments. Like, if you explain to someone who wasn't following cricket at all that, like, and just showed him your record, well, that obviously they're not like, he's not the first guy you're going to pick to do that job. But every cricket fan watching when he came to the innings, we were messaging last night like, this is the key wicket. If he's at the end, England are going to win this game. And, you know, it got a bit stressful there for a while as England sort of want to do, but with Stokes there, they were always in the game and he finished it off.
It's quite strange. Like you said, kind of a difference between like the eye test and like just if you're looking at stats, because I guess this T20 knock wasn't actually a T20 knock in a way. It was almost like a one-day knock, which is pretty much right up his alley. But you sort of got the sense like if England needed a little bit more, he would have gone a bit harder a bit earlier. But yeah, it was quite funny because I remember messaging you boys when he was under run of ball about, is this innings hurting England or is it helping England? And obviously it's ended up being the latter, but it's just sort of shows that how, I guess, has there been like, I can't think of a clutcher cricketer, like just in terms of these big moments, like they're starting to stack up now. It's the only person I can think of is like MS Dhoni.
Yeah, I was going to say a Dhoni.
When we grew up, obviously, as New Zealand, like Michael Bevan was very similar to this.
Yeah.
Like, every time you got Australia in trouble, like, very rare to even have them in trouble with the batting lineup they had at that stage. But if you did, he was just like that one last wicket you had to get that, like, it just felt like you could never get.
Yeah, 100%. As you said, Dhoni was the closest thing. Or that stretch in white ball cricket where Kohli would just peel off those chasing hundreds, and it was like, oh, well, Kohli's on 80 and they're chasing, they've won sort of thing. It's like those guys that went over that stat of like Dhoni not out at the end of a run chase had won like 98% of games or something silly. Or it was like 34 of 35 games, and it's like, there's just guys that know how to do it and know how to get it done and know how to time that chase as well, which, Stokes has sort of moved into that guy in the big moments.
I guess the big thing that's separating Stokes at the moment is he's got like 2 under his belt in finals. And they're really, like, as we've talked about in this World Cup, like, they're the games that actually get remembered when we're talking, 10, 15 years down the track. Like, not to take anything away from, Dhoni and Kohli, some of those innings, incredible innings, but, like, can you say who they were against now? Or do you just know they did play those great innings? Like, Stokeses will really stand out for years to come because they were finals games.
Well, that's the thing about Stokes is probably the difference is, if you look at all those guys you mentioned, like the Bevins, the Coleys, the Dhonies, their records are phenomenal. Like their records are like, they average over 50. Like you can see it on paper how good they are. Whereas if you look at Stokes on paper, it's averages mid-30 in Test cricket. His ODI record's pretty much the same. And as you said, in T20 cricket, it's under 20. But he seems to be able to turn it on. Like he just doesn't get out of bed unless it's a big moment. Otherwise, he just can't be bothered, sort of thing. Like that's the part that I think is so, I guess, unnatural than everyone else. Is that he seems to be able to turn it off and on, or he only can turn it on when it really, really matters, which I think is just incredible.
History remembers the winner, don't they? Like he's just going to be remembered as this ultra superstar who, in this like period of knockout white ball cricket, has been just like unstoppable. And yeah, I mean, Pakistan, I guess they'll never be remembered as the best bowling attack at a T20 World Cup now because they lost the final and they couldn't get it done. So, Stokes in one foul swoop has cemented himself as a sort of the premier final player in white ball cricket, and also to do it against that attack. I mean, they lost Shaheen Afridi to injury, which really sort of hurt their back end by the looks of it. But still, the rest of their attack is, I mean, we've been on the Pakistan train, especially that bowling attack, since the Tri-Series here in New Zealand, and to win it against them just adds another level to how good he is.
I was gonna start with the England bowling attack, but since you brought up Pakistan's sort of attack, we'll go straight into the old England innings, and we'll go back to, I guess, Curran and co later. But yeah, just on that attack, like it was that first sort of 6 overs. It was like England were going hard, and then Pakistan were going hard back at them. It was honestly like it was like a Rocky movie where you had like the basically just haymaker after haymaker, and no one's playing defense. At the end of the power play, England were like 48, which is like they've got off to a flyer, but they're 3 down at the same time. So it was like there was no draws. It was just sort of haymaker after haymaker. And I just watched a clip before on Instagram, and it was Naseem Shah's sort of spell, and you forget, like, after 2 overs he was none for 25, and he ended up none for 30 or 4, which sounds like, oh, he's done it right, but that second over is the most outrageous thing when you rewatch it. It's 11 runs off it, which sounds, he's been hit for 6, but he's bet Butler's bat 5 times.
It was outrageous.
It was unbelievable. I think it went like he bet him on the outside, he bowled it down leg side, got a bit straight, and it sort of
5 wides, wasn't it?
5 wides, and then he bet the bat a couple of times, and then Butler, to his credit, just went, I can't defend this guy, but I'll tell you what I can do. I can scoop him for 6. And then you think, oh, okay, Butler's going to keep going, but then, back to a couple of player misses. And then he did the same to Stokes. He just started going the other way, and I thought, this is really lightning sort of bowling.
Well, I think I messaged you at the time. I was like, I've never seen so many player misses in a T20.
Yeah, Stokes was laughing.
Yeah, like legitimately just him going past the bat, ball after ball. And like it was honestly like it was the opening session of a test match. They were like on the back foot trying to defend, and it was just whistling past the bat at such speed. And that Butler shot, probably, I don't know if we're going to do the PYRANHA Players of the Week, that for me is right up there, because I know like it gets said all the time, and it's so cliche, and Jacko loves to call it out like he's a very inventive player. They do it to him.
Jesus.
That was an outrageous shot, because it was like he just realised I've got no better option here. Like this is legitimately my best option. And to execute under that sort of pressure, that was incredible from Butler.
Yeah, and I tell you what, Butler is one of the best in the world. If you haven't seen it, if you've got a spare 20 minutes, watching his scooping masterclass, just to go on a wee side tangent, is like one of the best videos you'll ever watch in terms of like white ball batting. Is just the way he explains it. You can just see how it correlates directly into his game. It's a phenomenal watch.
He's so smart. He's so smart. Oh, like I talked on the solo pod the other day about how he reminds me of like LeBron James in the playoffs, like when he was in his prime. Just the way he'd like problem solve as he on the fly, and I just think like that's how he's quite obviously he's got all the shots, but he's also really really smart. So I think there was another masterclass I seen about him digging out Yorkers, and he was like him and Flintoff. Like obviously Flintoff's a bit old school, and he's trying to talk about like hitting sixes and Flintoff's hitting it normally, and he can't hit it as far because he can't dig out the Yorkers. Whereas Butler's like kind of like he's almost like he's got his bat like almost horizontal, and he's like almost like sweeping it down the ground so he can. And he's like, that's the only way I can hit the middle. Just things like that are quite sort of groundbreaking. I don't think he gets enough credit for that.
Mm.
I want to sort of paint a picture before, I guess, that Shaheen injury / over, because it was that game. In the end, it was comfortable for England, but there were times where it looked a little bit dicey, and even I think Duckworth Lewis even had Pakistan ahead at one stage. So obviously, as I said, England 40 off for 3 after the power play, and then you've got Harry Brook and Stokes started the repair job. 6 overs later, 84 for 3. And then the game sort of turned. Harry Brook got dismissed by Shadab Khan, who of course bowled well again. Shaheen Afridi took that pretty sharp catch, which obviously everything was all like rosy, but then it looked like he sort of hobbled his knee afterwards. He went off for a bit. He returned to bowl in the 16th over. He bowled one ball at about like 65k, dot ball though. Bet the bat. I thought it was a slower ball, and then you look at the replay, and it's just seam up, and he's got nothing. He's got nothing in the tank, and like England are needing 9s at this time. Which, when you start the innings at needing 6.5, that's not nothing.
It was getting tense. Like, I mean, it shouldn't be. It's not England's fault by any means, but that over that changed the game. That 6 and 4 from Stokes completely just changed the game.
Oh, massive! Like they had to bring in like obviously Iftikhar to bowl, but off spin, and you knew as soon as he came on, they were going to target him. They had to go because there was 2 overs from Ralph, 2 overs from Wasim. I think Naseem had already bowled out, and obviously we talked about how good he bowled. And then if Shaheen still had 2 overs to go at the time, so they needed a couple of overs somewhere else, and then it's a bit of a shame. Obviously, he hit the 6 and the 4, and then Moeen Ali took Wasim to the cleaners, and then just like 2 overs later, England only need 12 off 18.
Yeah,
and it was a bit of a shame. Like, obviously, I think we'd all agree that probably England were the better team, probably the best team of the tournament.
So just quickly to wrap up what you've just said, to summarise, there's another asterisk on an England World Cup win.
Yes, there is. At least it's nice that England, for a change, could win like conventionally.
Well, close to conventionally.
There will always be an asterisk, I guess. Like because a lot of these English guys are just sort of like, England would have won anyway. Like, I just don't know about that.
It was definitely getting tense. Like, I mean, it's another very similar, like talking about with that Sri Lanka game where it started to get tense, and it just didn't particularly need to, but everyone looked like they were just feeling the pressure a bit. Like when Harry Brook went out, I think they only needed like 50 off 7. Like it was only 7s they needed. But it still felt insanely tense out there. Like, and I don't know if that's just, because the commentators are painting that picture for us at home about the pressure and everything, the crowd's going nuts.
Oh, Nasser was going on about the depth like every 5 seconds.
Oh, I mean, that was about to, he was about to get the mute button, old Nasser.
I mean, I've never disliked Nasser, and obviously we'll talk about old Josh Butler a little bit later on, but...
That wasn't actually the finest hour of commentary, and I think it took a good New Zealand man like Smithy to say they do bat deep, NASA, but have they ever done it in a final? Just hold them back a bit.
Have they ever done it in that tournament?
No, that's it.
I wasn't gonna they got Livingston next 7. Were you gonna? I wasn't trusting him. Harry Brooks sort of scratched around a little bit, but you knew he was getting out at some point. Because it's interesting they talk about how quick they were batting. So I mentioned they were 80 off for 3 after 12 overs. Well, Pakistan were going faster. At the same time.
Yeah, they by no means was anyone striking at that clip. Like Stokes' innings will get remembered, and it should, because he done the best job. But he was absolutely scratchy for the majority of that innings.
Yeah, I don't think as a commentary team, I don't think they fully. It's not that they didn't completely respect Pakistan's bowling attack, but I don't think they quite gathered how hard a pitch that was to bat on.
Yeah,
and to think to keep going on about how Pakistan needed above par when they very nearly defended 130 just doesn't make any sense to me.
You often see this a bit in T20s and in one-day cricket where a team sort of not so much punches down, but sort of time their innings to what the score they're chasing is, rather than just going out and batting and a lot of times you just knock that off in 15 overs. So you do often see these games get dragged out a bit more than maybe you'd think necessary. But as you say, that pitch wasn't easy by any means. As I've talked about, the amount of balls that whistled past the bat, and the attack, they were all bowling quick, and they were so up for it. That was what made that second inning so fun. It looked like Pakistan would say, okay, we've got to bowl them out. So, I mean, if they're going, if they get 40, 50 off the power play, it doesn't matter. We've just got to take wickets.
The final just compounds everything, doesn't it? Every risk is more calculated because it's in a game that sort of might matter, it's right, I'll take a risk and it might not pay off, but next guy will get the job done. But in a final, everyone's like, well, fuck, if 4 guys' risks don't pay off and suddenly you've got Livingston trying to chase 50 in 6 overs, it's just that pressure of the final. I mean, runs on the board in a final are always a monumental task because every batter wants to be the guy that's there to knock them off, and no batter wants to be part of the group that fucking gets bowled out for 120 in that final. So everything just compounds, and guys are taking less risks, and that's why they try to. That's why I suppose, as you said, it pushes out a long way because, fuck, if England batted the way they did against India, they chase that in 10 overs perhaps, sort of thing.
Oh, if it was a bilateral game, I mean, because I guess the difference between those bilateral games is they don't really care as much because there's another game in about 2 days. Yep. Whereas there's not another World Cup final for. Well, I mean, you might not even make another one. You can't. There's another World Cup in 2 years, but you can't guarantee you're going to be there again. So it sort of made me wish that Pakistan just had another sort of 15-20, because if we sort of go back to their innings, they were 121 for 4 with 23 balls left, and then between Curran, Jordan, some pretty average batting, they only managed 16 runs in the next 23 balls, which is 4 and over. I mean, if they win at a run of ball, that's 144. 7 and over, that's 148. 8's, we're talking 152. They only made 137, and on that pitch with these bowlers, I mean, if it's 152, I mean, they probably win that game. What happened? Is Sam Curran the best bowler ever, or what?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
on paper.
The fact that you can't hit a bloke for more than 3s in a T20 with 5 guys out is astounding, really. That is supreme. And as we said, he's just a guy who's got his good skill set, and it's come together on the world stage in front of the biggest audience. So, yeah, that makes him the best bowler ever.
Yeah, and he's definitely not in the team of the tournament, but he is a terrific player. There was a couple of massive wee periods in this. I was saying to Munter last night, it's amazing how many twists and turns can happen in such a short format of cricket, and that was probably the first big one. There was that. There's a couple real crucial overs that changed the game, and then obviously the injury in the end was the last big factor. But the way Pakistan finished their batting was the first massive sort of event in the game where they just couldn't. They were if they had batted maybe even a bit more sensibly. Obviously, it's hard to see the T20 with the last few overs. It's just you've got to, I guess, in your head you're thinking it's boundaries. But even if they could have on those big boundaries just picked off 1s and 2s at least and got, 8s or 9s and over. But they just all held out on that boundary. That's sort of how Curran picked up a couple of his wickets. They all fell on the boundary. Jordan the same.
Like Stephen Fleming's come out and sort of dressed down their death batting and saying, like, look, they haven't adjusted to how you're supposed to bat at the death at the MCG, because it is big boundaries. And as you said, you hit 3 2s, 2 singles, and that 5th one goes for, like, that 5th one is either a dot or a boundary, and then you've got between 8 and 12 and over, and they get that 150 that with their attack is impossible to chase almost. So, yeah, they've obviously got that death period wrong, and Fleming's called them out and said, shit, maybe they didn't do their research, and maybe they didn't.
That seems to be the difference between like England and other teams. Like I sort of give, there's something about Sam Curran I don't rate. Like obviously, 13 wickets. This is a perfect ground for Sam Curran and Chris Jordan. Like the big boundaries, like all the wickets were caught on the fence. Like there's no doubt if this final was at Eden Park, like there's no chance. Like he's going at 10s. But
no, in the rest.
That's neither here nor there. But the thing is, I guess like they're quite a smart. They use analytics. They assess conditions. They assess the boundary, the matchups, the boundary sizes. They make you hit to the long boundaries. They do all those little smart sort of things. And I guess that's because when you think about England, you think about their rock star batting lineup. But it was their bowling that won in the game. Like if I said we've got a bowling attack of Ben Stokes, Chris Woakes, Chris Jordan, Sam Curran, Livingston, Adil Rashid. Like barring Rashid, there's not like one bowler that is going to worry a batting team. But like as a unit with like Joss Buttler and the plans, they just seem to suffocate teams in a way, which is like quite impressive.
Yeah, and I think it's important to touch on. I was mentioning there was a couple of massive moments throughout that first 20 overs. The last 5 obviously being the biggest, but I mean, was it the 12th or 13th over? You were probably a bit better at keeping track of this stuff, Munter, the Rashid over.
Yeah, that was...
The wicket made and just sort of... It really felt like a shift in the game as well.
Well, the over before, like Shah Massoud, he took Livingston for 16.
Yeah.
And it just felt like, Bubba, he's in... Shah Massoud actually batted really well. I can't remember what he got, but he sort of really picked up the gear. He ran well. He was proactive. And you're right, it just felt like they were about to shift a gear. And then that over was just, it was phenomenal. It was that, you'll probably talk about it, Lugsy, but to deceive Bubba's arm so convincingly with a googly was just incredible.
It was just the way they'd sort of set up that he'd like done him a bit in the past. And you're like looking at Bubba on paper and you're like, he's a world-class batter with sort of no flaws. And yet here's this guy that just completely bamboozles him sort of most time he bowls to him. And Ron Joey just bowls that googly wrong and yeah. A very odd-looking dismissal, but far out. Very important over.
Good to see the sort of the favourite just get the job done.
Yeah, I've always rated that.
Yeah, like it is good to see sort of a dominant team for the past few years sort of get their roses. So well done, England. Commiserations, Pakistan, and yeah, New Zealand would have won that final if we were in it.
Yeah, I think the final actually sort of somewhat played out as a lot of the tournament has, like in a lot of why we enjoyed the tournament. It was actually like a really good battle between bat and ball, like most of the way.
Yeah, definitely. And great segue into the rest of the tournament because as you've said, that's probably what's made it like a lot more entertaining, I think, compared to the last T20 World Cup where it was, right, let's see who wins the toss and bat second and they'll just chase whatever gets set. Like this was actually even the final 130 odd, it's like, oh, geez, Pakistan's bowling attack's good. This is going to be a hell of a chase sort of thing. So I think that level of unknowing into T20 cricket again was just ramped that enjoyment factor up so much, and it's just been fantastic to watch.
I don't think I've ever loved T20 cricket as much as I do right now.
Nah.
Which I've always sort of liked. It's always sort of liked it, but you've always sort of seen it as a hit and giggle. But I think there's just a bit about it.
Yeah, I've never had as much interest in like neutral games either. Like Pakistan Zimbabwe was a great game. Netherlands South Africa, that was great. Like even England, Sri Lanka, everything. Like every game you watch, you were just like almost on the edge of your seat. There wasn't many sort of definitive results apart from our first one against Aussie.
And it probably like speaks to how much these guys are playing now, though, and how good they are getting at the game. Like they talk about it a bit with basketball, with like the level of NBA at the moment is just insanely high because these guys are all just like so prolific, so locked in on their shooting and everything. And it just seems like that's happening with T20 cricket, especially now. Like these guys just play so much of it. Almost every batter's like 360. Like bowlers have now all got slower balls, different variations. Like the quality of the game is just very high. And that's actually even happening in the lower teams as well. Even their guys are all playing so much that their standards are getting higher. So it's just made the whole game like a lot higher level.
Definitely, 100%. And this is probably like a good sort of way to sort of get into our like piranha plays of the whole World Cup because of obviously there's just been so many unbelievable memories. It seems like, you know, the first one that I think of is obviously Finn Allen smoking Mitchell Starc 14 off that first over to give us hopes of winning the cup. And there's been so many. Like I've got a few here, boys, but I'll rattle off them, and then if you guys have got any more, feel free to add to it. So I've got here the Glenn Phillips catch versus Aussie.
Big one.
Special.
Just special. I just felt like it just put an exclamation mark on the evening.
And also that whole game, obviously, as we've talked about in the past, because we won it, we'll obviously continue to talk about it.
That's it. That's basically it.
Game of the World Cup for me, to be fair.
Yep, and it'll be ahead of the next one, which is Kohli's 6 against Harris Ralph.
Oh, look, not a bad shot, but
I mean, it's okay. It's just a group stage game, nothing to get excited about. I mean, come on.
Our finals we're at. We've been talking about this.
And beating Aussie and winning finals. That's all. Yeah. That's the only thing that matters. Speaking of beating like good teams, Glenn Phillips 100 versus Sri Lanka. I didn't have a moment. I just felt like that 100 just felt like something. It felt like a superstar was born. For
coming
me.
Out party.
Yeah, coming out party. The next one I've got Ireland actually being the world champs because they beat England. That's how this works.
I mean, that is, in all seriousness, that's got to be a massive confidence booster now. Watching them, seeing England go on to win the tournament and thinking we've cleaned them up.
Well, I've got that, and I've got Zimbabwe beating Pakistan, the other finalists. Like it kind of shows like what you guys are talking about, like the depth, and I guess that's why T20 is so. Like you're not going to have that at Test cricket, and you're probably not going to have that ODI cricket. No. But at T20 cricket, it feels like it's the best chance for the sport to grow, into something like something like it could turn into something like the Football World Cup or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you even look at like those games Ireland played against us in the warm-ups, and you're like, they had us in trouble, like 2 out of the 3 games because it was just that longer format, like. We eventually just found a way to turn it around and win it. So it's just, and that the shorter it gets, obviously, the closer that brings it more together.
The skill gap matters less when the game is shorter, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of like the upset, I've got it could be the whole game, it could be the whole day, but I've got that Van der Merwe catch like versus South Africa. Like that catch by itself could probably be it's a play of the World Cup. But when you think about the moment and the ripple-on effect it had, because it was the beginning of the end for South Africa, and then it just had this massive change for the whole World Cup. Like Netherlands now like guaranteed to the next World Cup because they won that game. Pakistan obviously go through, they smash us. They very nearly won it all. And then, South Africa, we were talking about the pod before that. I picked them to make the final, and then a few days later, they lost 2 games. They're out the cup. See you later. It just I feel like it just sort of summed up the whole tournament as a whole, right, like that day.
I think you're right. I think it's that probably for me is my number one vote. Just the ripple effects of that. Like you want to talk about the butterfly effect of a catch, but that's probably that's changed world cricket for a short amount of time. That's for sure.
Definitely. So next one, obviously, we'll move on to the semis. I've got the Shadab Khan run out of Devon Conway.
I don't know if that's necessary to put in, but
it's just I just felt like had to put something in there. I mean, we could put it could be Finn Allen's first ball.
That was a good shot, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then that was probably that was at that point we were on top. From the rest of the game, we were pumped basically. So that's for me. I've got that. Got to give Pakistan a bit of love. And from the other semi, I mean, there could be a lot. Hales did some stuff. Curran went for a few. Pandya hit that sort of like that flick off the legs. I rated, but I'm going to go like the last Butler 6 over Kohli to sort of exclamation mark beat India by 10 wickets, 170 in 16 overs. It just
the celebration.
Celebration. Like you don't see a lot of celebrations like that from old Butler.
I was going to say, I'll just touch on that from last night as well. As everyone was sort of running on the field, going nuts like I do love to see, he was quite reserved in terms of like, this obviously you could tell me everything to him. Like he was like almost like couldn't run on the field tearing up. So it was cool to see from Butler.
Definitely. Well, there was a bit early on, like when he first got captaincy, I think they lost a couple of white ball games, and there was a bit like sort of in the English media questioning if he was the man for the job, and he was sort of having to defend his own strategy and his own position, and they were going to work it out. And then they lost Bairstow, and yeah, I think it just, you can tell it meant fucking heaps to him, and yeah, fair play.
Very unlike the media to criticise their players. Actually.
Yeah, normally a very gentle, calm-headed media.
Yeah. Speaking of media, I guess, like just on like Owen Morgan, he's been a revelation in the combox. He's been such a, like, it's a weird sort of dynamic because he is...
His interview with Hales was awkward though, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a bit of funny sort of stuff. He sort of really, like if Hales had a photo of that, he would have cropped him out for sure. But it was quite interesting just hearing him like discuss about like what it'd be like in the camp, because he obviously would know. And I guess one of the most underrated like retirements, because he sort of gave Butler time and the team time to sort of suck a wee bit and find their feet and then just come right at the right time. And I think that's pretty impressive in hindsight. Like a lot of people sort of hang on a bit long. Aaron Finch
would have been easy to hang on for the whole World Cup.
What's sort of the guts of this whole Hales thing? He just do a bit of gear on a Saturday night and not tell the boys, or
yeah, did a bit of gear, got caught, and basically got binned from the team forever. Well, I think like the leadership group at the time said like he'll never play for England again.
Look, I'm not into conspiracy theory, but I don't know if he was. It's probably Saturday night post a win. I doubt he's the only one getting on the sugar.
Well, apparently So I looked into it the other day, and it was around that 2019 World Cup. I don't know the exact time, but he essentially failed a couple of drug tests, and then he had to miss a game or whatever, and he didn't tell the team.
Yeah.
So he sort of like, it wasn't that he failed the drug test; it was that he didn't tell the team.
I'm glad they're all good on that.
Yeah.
Good start
but I don't know exactly what happened with him and Stokes. I know that something happened with that night out and the old gave injured punch sort of thing, and because obviously Hales was there, and in the doco he refers to him as a former friend and all that sort of stuff.
He was a bit busy in the toilets at the time, so
Maybe that's why Stokes went on a rampage.
But like I said, like I said the other night, last year, no Hales. There's Morgan in that team. They lose. This year, no Morgan. Hales is in the group. Is that a coincidence? I don't know.
I think that's what happens when you add a few tattoos to the mixer.
Fuck, he looks good. He looked good. Although I didn't actually put that down, but that Shaheen Afridi ball to like clean him up was quite something, as you sort of expect. And then I've got Rashid's googly that got Bubba Azam. That's sort of my list. I don't know if you guys want to add to that.
You're taking about 45 there, Munter. So
is that one per game? Is it?
It's a real comprehensive sort of list. That was sort of what I couldn't think of anything else to be fair, but I think
I think I mentioned a couple of times throughout the tournament, so I'll just give them another shout out here. Like the commentary in general, very handy.
Except for the final, I felt like it was a bit patchy.
But just to touch on it one last time to wrap it up, obviously they just got a few things wrong last night, especially Josh Butler getting referred to multiple times as Josh, particularly when his name was on the screen at one point, and he still got the Josh treatment.
Smithy did it I would say at least 5 times.
Oh yeah,
at least is he going senile? Like I don't want to sort of disrespect the king of commentary. But there was the other one where Livingston had gone for 16, and then they obviously got a wicket, and then Smithy's like talking to Morgan, and he's like, they got to get Livingston back on. They got to sneak an over through, and it was just crickets. Like he was just Morgan was like knew that was a terrible idea, but he didn't want to say anything.
When that
Smitty's lucky Darwood Milan didn't play, or he would have been another named nightmare.
When the young fella Muhammad Harris was like 0-6 or 0-5 something, they also referred to him as now starting to see it like a football. Which I'll just even if you are seeing it well, which he definitely wasn't at that point. To say a football's such an odd reference.
Yeah. It's beach ball.
He's seen it so well, the ball's actually changed shape.
Oh, imagine how hard it would be to hit a football. Imagine like it bounces and you don't know which way it's going. But yeah, Muhammad Harris, that was I didn't actually bring that up, but that was quite a knock in a bad way. It's the sort of knock that you're kind of laughing at as the opposition because the guy's just swinging willy nilly and he's not connecting.
We've talked. It's Little John-esque.
It was good stuff. And then just on, I guess we might as well bring up old Ravi Shastri. I mean, he was in that old on-field commentary box. Are we a fan? What do you thoughts on the on-field commentary box?
I didn't like a lot of that stuff. It didn't sort of. The cool thing would be if it really got the crowd. You could really feel the atmosphere, but I don't think that sort of worked in that way. So they always sort of, there's at least one of these sort of new ideas they sort of trial out every World Cup, but I didn't particularly thought it added much.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I guess I should probably wrap up this ad, to be fair. I've really sort of dragged it out.
My vote would probably honestly be that whole, I would maybe go the whole Butler Hales innings.
Yeah, that's fair.
To go none down and just absolutely blast India. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'll go the Dutchman's catch. I think that Flying Dutchman that is just that will go down as one of the best catches in cricket history. I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Jacko on that one. I think the ripple effect, the degree of difficulty. Yeah, even though it kind of shafted us as a Caps team. I'll go that one.
Would we agree on probably second place, just sort of that Finn Allen boundary in that semi-final?
Yeah, it's a clear second place.
I would say second is just that first game against Aussie.
Yeah, to be fair, that's actually a serious one that could be
just correct. the whole game, just the whole day, the first game of the World Cup. It felt special.
Some great PYRANHA athletes in that game too.
Yep, that is a good segue to, of course, why we're talking about this stuff, and that is our good friends at PYRANHA Grip Socks. The non-slip grip technology designed to minimise slipping in your shoe and maximise output. Designed and tested right here in New Zealand by professional athletes, the choice of sock for Black Caps, Devon Conway, Finn Allen, Michael Bracewell, Ish Sodhi, Jimmy Neesham, White Ferns, Amelie and Jess Kerr, and Molly Penfold, as well as the number one women's bowler in the world, Sophie Eccleston. Performance, quality, and style. I mean, if all those names I read don't tell you that these socks are for real, then maybe the fact that I had my PYRANHAs on for the first time playing golf on Friday. Birdie first hole. I do. We won't talk about the rest of the round.
Yeah, you shouldn't have took your socks off.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know why I was thinking that. I think because they were on fire. So I took my socks off, and then my game capitulated, of course. And then the next day, when I had to field for the club team, obviously I didn't have them on, and I had to field for the club team. One of the worst fielding displays you'll ever see quietly. Just no pace.
That long barrier into fumble couldn't be less of an advertisement for PYRANHA and the flair you want in your game.
I felt like the clip started good, where I felt like there was like a good wee walking in, a wee sort of nice wee hop step, and then
lovely stagger step.
And then it was just, and then I remember like going to the ball, and I'm like, fuck, I can't let this go past me. If this goes through me, like I've got to make sure I get on. Like, they're not running, I've got to get everything on it. And yeah, we bobble, and just, it was a tough day, but that's fine.
You what? You know you're a bit of a battling cricket player when you're stoked you're walking incorrectly. I mean, that's a low bar.
You know what? We're a glass half full sort of podcast here.
Yeah, in terms of the rest of the video, like we're comparing apples with oranges, aren't we?
Yeah. And in a complete side note, as we've talked about, like those little things that, you know, when you know someone's going to be actually a bit of a cricketer or not, about age 8 or 9, when the odd guy starts walking in and the idiots of the team are just looking the other way and stuff. That's a real first step to know who's going to play cricket.
Yeah, so we digress again, but you know, PYRANHA Grip Socks, they've supported us unbelievably well this World Cup. Where you guys, the listeners, were able to receive 20% off PYRANHA's latest range using the code TMC20. I don't know if this deal's still going, but you know what, give it a try. It's not going to hurt. Boys, should we touch on this World Cup tournament team? Because is Sam Curran in this team or not?
He's been left out from what I've seen.
Yeah, because I've got in my notes here. We've got Alex Hales, Joss Butler, Coley, Sky, Glenn Phillips, Sikandar Raza, Shadab Khan, and I've got Sam Curran here, Norchies, Mark Wood, and Shaheen Afridi. So what was the other list we had?
Yeah, that was just Wide World of Sports. So
they just
Channel 9.
Oh, that was their own one. Yeah, they've chucked
that was just their team in the tournament. So really bitter.
Yeah, because I see this one I'm looking at. It's got Arshdeep Singh ahead of Sam Curran, which couldn't make less sense.
The thing at Wide World of Sports has just lost his gig, surely.
That's an absolute shocker. Imagine the player of the final, the guy with the most wicket, the player of the tournament not making the tournament team. Like, come on.
Well, let's not exactly show. I mean, he wouldn't have made your team, Matthew.
Look. To be fair, if this was a team and we were like, okay, we're going to play T20s and all these different places, I'm probably not going to pick him.
Well, no, you've got blokes picking fucking like teams for just visceral reasons, while you know it's for fantasy reasons.
I was going to say we were going to have a fantasy wrap up, but I couldn't actually look up the stats because it's all closed. But
you must have lost in the end then. And then
you came last, actually, mate.
And then we decided to shut up.
Me and Crom stormed home to be joint winners.
It's no joke. There was a massive gap.
Just to let the listeners in here, Matthew's, you know, we've all picked our teams start of the tournament. And me and Jacko obviously had no idea we're going to do fantasy or anything. And then Munter's just started whacking it up on the story. Like, here are the fantasy points. Like, you got guys like me picking Michael Bracewell who's not even playing, just to be a good Kiwi. And then, hold on, he's updated it again, and now every 2 days, Munter's steaming ahead. And me and Jacko are just slowly behind the scenes getting more and more bitter, ready to really confront
England's World Cup victory in 2019 has less sort of like bitterness to it than this does for me.
That's actually the true reason I had to do solo pods this week. You guys needed a breather.
Negotiations in the TMC pod have been stalling behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, okay. So that's our wrap up. That's our wrap up and our wrap up of the tournament team all into one. The only thing I've got more of the World Cup is I've got an out or not out question for you guys, and it's to do with stats and most runs and most wickets. And now the most runs was Virat Kohli, which is probably no surprise. Most wickets is Hasaranga, which is probably no surprise. Although what I'm not rating is that they're counting qualifier games for this tally. Like, it doesn't make sense, and it kind of taints the records. Like, you've got Hasaranga, who's a good bowler, but he's like taken the most wickets in the last 2 World Cups. But he's playing an extra 4 games because his team's no good, and they have to play qualifiers. And
his team's just good enough to scrape through and get an extra 4 games.
And it's not like he's playing in like extra games in the semi-finals and finals against the best teams in the world. He's playing against obviously the minnows they're getting better, but it just hinders it. Like you've got,
and your wicket taking leader is an accumulator, aren't they? Like they're the bloke that gets 2 every game with the odd bag.
Oh, Hasaranga, he's got bowled 4 every game. And you've got like the most runs, like seconds Max O'Dowd, and like Max O'Dowd, like he's a good player, should have played Volts, didn't. That's another story. But he hasn't got the second most runs. He's had 4 extra games. It just to put him in between Kohli and Sky just doesn't. The list doesn't make sense to me. So I don't know where you guys sort of sit on that one.
Yeah, out. You've got to, if you're going to do it that way, you've got to do it on an aggregate, or you've got to do something that gives you like a bit of perspective, isn't it? Like you do it on batting average, not batting total runs, because total runs are definitely determined by amount of knocks. 4 extra and you only come second. Like that shows you enough. That shows you why Targo put him in the bin.
Yeah, I mean, you're not even they're only really selling these games as like part of the World Cup to gain a bit of interest to these games, aren't they? Like, there's no one seriously thinking they're World Cup games or the World Cup started. Like, it started game 1, New Zealand Australia. Thanks. So you can't count those runs a wicket. I mean,
it's cool. Like it's a good thing, and like I kind of like that it's part of the World Cup. Yeah, and I do. Yeah, it's a good thing. But just when you look back and like if this tournament becomes a big deal, and you look back and like it's going to take sort of history. Like it's like it just. I don't know how it'd almost be like if you had like a regular season record in the NBA and you counted preseason games.
Yeah.
I think a bullet was dodged with Kohli getting the most runs, thankfully. Like if it had been O'Dowd and Hasaranga at the top, it would have been like, well, okay, like no shit. Yeah, they just played more games. But for Kohli to get there with more, like less games is just like a great stat. But yeah, definitely out. You've got to be... The full noise games are all that count, not the curtain raisers.
Yeah, 100%.
Beautiful. Well said. Well said. Anything else World Cup related you boys want to touch on?
I just think just in the end, it's just been a really fun World Cup and a great battle between bat and ball, and like already genuinely sort of fizzed about the next big white ball tournament. So when you're coming away fizz for more cricket and more tournament cricket, that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, when you're already starting to think like, what's our next white ball World Cup team going to look like and what are our chances, and you're weighing that up and you're already ready to see who's going to win it and how we stack up in sort of 18 months' time. It's an exciting time to be a fan.
Let's move on to our favourite snack of the week. And obviously we do apologise there was no snack of the week last week. We had a couple of issues. We had a few... Well, one, obviously Lugsy wasn't with us last week, which is never great for the integrity of snack of the week. Obviously, he did throw his toys from losing to Jacko for twice in a row.
Me against Jacko here. We're combined.
Look, I've got. I'm
6 in a row here, pal, and it's you that's under the pump.
Look, I'm busy trying to sort out my fantasy team. Like, I don't have time. I don't have time to like worry about the right snacks. But obviously,
in our heart of hearts, Crom, we're winning the fair battles.
Yeah.
Jacko, do you want to have the floor again? Just want to discuss sort of Boost taking the favourites victory, which I was a little surprised. I'm not going to lie. As me and Lugsy have quite often said, you don't go to the supermarket to buy a Boost, but yet Boost was the winner of the favourites category. So the floor is yours, Jacko.
Yeah, I suppose another week to revel in my victory. But yeah, I suppose the best thing maybe that is why it's everyone's favourite, because you don't get a Boost that often. You have a Moro or you have a Flake or you have your picnic every now and then, but you're not getting a Boost. So maybe that's why it was number one, and maybe that's why it's my number one. And just another great victory from one of the absolute 2 dynasties in Snack of the Week.
Yeah. And Lugsy, how do you sort of take that result?
Well, am I going sort of nuts here? I thought had we not done bread post that? Or?
Yeah. No,
we had recording issues and that got deleted.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, that was actually the real reason. It wasn't that you weren't there. The audio was no good, and we're gonna move on to the bread family. Should we just get into it now? Actually, because obviously, it was last week. We're gonna do it this week. Yeah, we're gonna sort of it's a redo. So basically, what you had last week, we're gonna redo it. But first, I would really love you to explain what the hell the bread family is, because I've never heard of it until you came up with it last week.
Well, I guess I don't even truly know myself. It's sort of one of those things you can't explain, but you know when you see it. Like, so Molesy, former flatmate Andrew Miller, now applying his trade in London, he'd quite often would daily trips back and say, and we'd just sort of be like, yeah, can you grab me something? Like, what do you want? Like chocolate chips. And it would be occasionally, yeah, just grab me something from that sort of bread family. And that would sort of include your ice buns, sort of my favourite and his favourite, like this beautiful boysenberry, the roll thing. But, you can even grab, if you want to include the meat bread sort of things they do, the barbecue bread loaves, all of this sort of stuff is sort of in that bread family.
So it's just the New World Bread Bakery section, isn't it, essentially?
Essentially, yeah, if you want to sort of make it a bit more simpler.
What, is there would pizza buns be in this category?
Yeah, you got your pizza buns, your meat lovers ciabattas, your twists.
Yeah.
I mean, if I asked for something in that bread family and he came home with a pizza bun, I'd be fuming, but you can put it in that family.
So, some people like pizza buns,
Oh, absolutely, but I'm not those people.
I'm one per visit, I reckon.
Yeah, I can probably. I can't have too many of them. I don't mind
it's more your sweet stuff, like your sort of your pink ice buns. Obviously, like probably your most famous option in New Zealand.
Yep. No. Okay. Fair enough. All right, Lugsy. What did you run with again last week?
And the bread family. They'll get a picture of it, I'm sure, but it's a wee pack and save option. It's quite big. It has gone up in price, but it's like the sort of boysenberry knot, or you can get the raspberry knot. It's loaded with a lot of icing, and it's, I do just love bread. So the combination of bread and icing, although you'd never have a bit of Bergen's bread and just cover it in icing, when it's already on display at Pack and Save, it's a terrific option.
Very nice. Jacko, what did you run?
Yeah, so I went with Crom just mentioned it there, but it was the pink ice bun, the one with the cut down the middle, cream in it, little jam dollop in the middle, the pink icing, the raspberry ice bun. It is like elite, top tier sort of sweet bakery item for me in the bread family.
Are you always sort of cream and jam? Because I guess there's the three options. There's the ice bun with nothing. It's just your pink ice. There's then you can have it with the jam, which I love it. Got to have the jam with it. And then obviously the jam and the cream. You're always a jam and cream, or?
Yeah, I mean, jam. If we're going to power rank those three quickly, I'll just be them in reverse order. So it'll be cream, jam, nothing. Yep. Nothing would be one of the. It would be like biting into an oatmeal raisin cookie, thinking it's chocolate chip.
Yeah, you got to get home and smother that in a litre of butter.
Yeah. You are penning a letter to the editor. That is just dog shit if you get that. But yeah, cream would be my number one, but a little bit excessive, but just outstanding option.
Very good. So I'm a big donut sort of guy. So I was pretty happy that this sort of counted amongst the bread family. Obviously, quite often I'll fill up at BP, AA Smart Fuel, and then I'll grab a wee donut on the side. Normally I'll do a wee like a filled donut with a bit of custard in the middle. But this week, last week I went to Copeland's instead, and they had quite an unbelievable option where it was a chocolate filled bun, but this one had Nutella in the middle.
Oh yeah,
special.
And it just gave me. It was like Hazella in a donut, and everyone loves Hazella. Everyone loves Nutella. it was sensational. Very, very happy with that pick. So,
couldn't find
hopefully,
2 picks.
Hopefully now that my fantasy team's out of the way, I can sort of redirect my focus onto the snack of the week and sort of get back on the board. Since I didn't realise we were counting score. That's okay.
Yeah. Just to circle back to the fill up and grabbing of Krispy Kreme, and I'll give out a hot tip to all the snackers out there. When you budget your petrol allowance in, if you budget 30, fill up 25 and you've got 5 for snacks. One of the great life hacks.
That's just good
brilliant.
Yeah. I'll do it every time. Like, right, I've got 30 to spend on petrol. Well, we'll put 25 in, get away something.
Tell you what, we're slowly morphing into Ryan for a show with this sort of life advice.
Yeah. It'll change your life, change your day.
Just give another tip for the snackers. If you don't actually drive, that $30 can be all on snacks.
And also you burn more calories so you can get more in.
Exactly right.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think that's a good place to leave us for this week. Obviously, massive thanks to all the listeners over the World Cup. It's been a massive sort of stint for our boys. Couple of podcasts a week. Numbers are through the roof. Thanks to you guys. I just want to revisit our listener sort of power rankings, if I may. I think we've got to have PYRANHA at the top. Being our sort of a sponsor for the World Cup. So we'll get them at top. We'll keep Mitch Cuthbert sort of around that sort of top because he did buy us a mic. So, if you really want to get towards that top, buy us equipment. It
won't take a lot, honestly. You flick us, couple of Big Macs each, something in mind like that.
Especially a Big Mac.
You'll be getting pretty close to the top pretty quickly.
Definitely. And where we got? Who's next?
Probably our 5-star reviewers next.
I'd probably go Patreons before then, mate.
Yeah, just Patreons, Producer Gav on the Patreon.
Producer Gav. Actually, he's pretty low, to be fair. He calls himself a producer, yet does zero producing.
Or listening, in fact, because he never realises how much shit we give him.
Yeah, which is interesting because he's a Patreon. So he's paying to not listen to us, which is okay. If that's if that's what you guys want to do, you're more than welcome to.
Definitely.
Also
Patreon subscribers next for sure.
Yeah, if that's not selling a Patreon, I don't know what is. And then we've got definitely our 5-star reviews. Probably the ones that write a review on Apple. Definitely good. And then our 5 stars on Apple and Spotify recently cracked 150 in the Spotify. Real big daddy sort of number that, eh? So
yeah. Next goal, a tweet from Jason Gillespie.
Yeah, I'll join the club. I like it.
The next one's big, isn't it? Couple of hunch, we Jason Gillespie. Lovely. And then I think from there we've just got our lovely listeners and obviously Lugsy and Jacko. So thanks so much, and we'll catch you again in another week.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for tuning in. Stay subscribed and get your PYRANHA grip socks.
Beautiful. Too easy, boys.